Hello and welcome. I'm Bob Laliberte, Principal Analyst for theCUBE Research. And today we're talking about making enterprise networks as easy to consume as cloud. Specifically, we're going to be talking to Zayo about its network as a service strategy and how its recently introduced DynamicLink aims to change how organizations design, purchase, and operate connectivity. Now, joining me today is Zayo's Chief Product and Strategy Officer, Bill Long. Bill, great to have you join us.
Great, thanks for having me.
So let's get this started. And I know, Bill, we've been talking earlier, there's maybe some viewers out there who don't really know who Zayo is that well. I'm wondering if you could give everyone a summary of who Zayo is and what problems you're solving right now.
Sure. So Zayo is a communications infrastructure provider across North America, and we operate fiber networks. So think of it's kind of everyone thinks that the internet's just magic. But there's actually physical fiber across the US. We have about 20 million fiber miles, over 147,000 route miles, where we connect data centers, houses, businesses, cell towers. So we're the actual physical connectivity that underlies sort of the digital economy of today. Like all things, big problems we're solving today, the big one we're involved in is AI. So all these big data centers that are being built all throughout, wherever there happens to be energy, whether it's in West Texas or Southern Indiana or Jackson, Mississippi, big data centers have to be connected. So we have a long haul network that connects all of those. So connecting, big data centers to enable AI. We're connecting a lot of data centers that do inference. But the one we're really excited about is we're helping enterprises basically overhaul their networks so that they can participate in that AI sort of enabled economy. So we're connecting, enterprise buildings, enterprise branch office, employees, data centers, clouds, but really making it easy for the enterprises to be able to connect all those things.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And obviously we're seeing it from the analyst perspective. The network is increasingly important to enterprises. It started with the cloud, and everything's starting to get distributed to the cloud and their private data centers. And now as AI takes hold, it's the same thing. There's all the cloud AI centers that they need to connect to. They're going to be their own on-prem locations, especially for those who don't want to share their data with the cloud. And then increasingly, even more importantly, is going to be all the edge locations popping up for that inferencing and needing all that long haul bandwidth to be able to move that traffic around and get it to where they need it to train these models and so forth. So super important. I know our own research shows that as well, that we've done 93% of organizations, enterprise organizations, said the network is more important today in achieving business goals. So solving problems, achieving business goals than it was 2 years ago. So the cool part is the networking is cool again. So yeah. Love to see that. I know you mentioned you're pushing it more into the enterprise as well. So if I'm a large enterprise IT or network leader, why should I shift to Zayo now? How will an enterprise benefit from your push that you're doing now into NAS?
Yeah, so I think if you think, all the locations you talk about connecting, whether it's cloud or multi-tenant data centers or enterprise locations, the networking, like you said, is getting more and more important. But the network products that the enterprises use to connect those locations are the same products that were really defined around 2000. So they're 25-year-old products that really were built for connecting, basically passing bits to connect people to people or people to applications. The use cases now are really connecting data pools to intelligence. So you really have the wrong tool for the job. So while they're more important, the form factor of the sort of classic network products, while they can pass the bits, they just weren't purpose built for the use case that we have today. So we wanted to, with what we're doing with DynamicLink, which is our NAS product, is a complete reimagining, not just of sort of how you configure, scale up or scale down your bandwidth on something, but more of a fundamental rethink of what are the core network products. So what DynamicLink, it connects all those things. So all locations on the Zayo network and even off-net locations can be connected. And then using an online portal, you can go and create whatever you want that connection to be. So let's say there are 5 different things on your network. 2 of them are clouds. 1 of them might be a multi-tenant data center. 2 of them are some of your, headquarter location, a branch office location. You order a port in all of those locations, and then you can have that be whatever you want it to be. It could be a multi-point VLAN. It could be a DIA drain with some DDoS and some route filtering, but that's all at your control. So all you have to do is basically order a port, and then everything is available online. So to be able to go and configure that via portal or via APIs. So it's a complete reimagining of what the products are. So instead of having to be like, oh, what is this location? Is this just a DIA, a dedicated internet location, or is this going to be a point-to-point, Ethernet connection between two data centers? It doesn't matter. Use it for whatever you want it to be. And then the commercial model of the product is the same, where you just order a port and you use it for whatever you want to use it for. So it's all the way from an architectural to a commercial to a user experience complete rethink of basically solving for the complex sort of hybrid multi-cloud environment that enterprises are in today.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, where do you see these enterprises jumping on board? If you were talking to, where do they typically land first? Is it, hey, I need to connect my data centers? Is it cloud on ramps?
Yeah.
Connecting the WANs, the AI data pipelines, as we spoken earlier?
Yeah, we're seeing them come in a lot of different ways. In a lot of ways, if you're going to be doing something new doing the new things is always a little bit hard. So typically what we see people doing is using DynamicLink to basically lift and shift what they're doing today. It's a cheaper, easier way to do basic DIA or point-to-point Ethernet or connect to cloud. So just lift and shift that. So we've seen everything from, we just recently turned a major media company that was looking for dedicated internet access in 20 locations. We turned them up on DynamicLink. They're like, they love the flexibility of it because if tomorrow they want to change those locations to connect out to a cloud or connect those locations together, they can. But they just lifted and shifted what they're using today, and then with the option value and the flexibility of how they want to use it in the future. So that's really what we're seeing. But it's everything from the major use cases are dedicated internet access to locations, point and multi-point Ethernet, and then connect to cloud, are the three sort of primary. Start there, and then they sort of build complexity and build sort of more use cases over time.
Okay. And then what are typically the results that an enterprise should expect to see? And what are the KPIs that are going to improve in that first 90 days?
Yeah, so the value kind of comes in waves or horizons. So the first horizon is because it is a completely different commercial model, if you're using it for basically more than one service, so if you're doing DIA with DDoS or route filtering or multi-point VLANs, it's immediate cost savings. So step one is lift and shift what you're doing today, and you're going to get some immediate value. The second value is it really makes the amount of sort of OpEx and the teams you need to have in order to run the complex environment comes down. So first phase of savings is your telecom expense is going to come down. The second phase of savings is it's an easier environment to operate. So typically, because network is growing and growing, what it allows you to do is grow your demands without having to grow your team. So we typically don't see people sending their network teams home. We just see them being able to do more with less. And then the third horizon is because networking has become so easy, instead of it being a sort of an afterthought and sort of a necessary evil, it becomes a core driver of how they can reimagine what their business can be. So if you think about, you have some of your data might be up in GCP, but in Google Cloud, but you want to be using an AI tool that might exist in AWS, and then you want to serve that up to a user that might be in a branch office. That would take you months to configure and set up in classic telco. You can go and set that up in seconds in DynamicLink. So all these use cases about my data lives somewhere, I want to be using computer AI somewhere else, I want to deliver it to users. Go in, make that happen in a day or in minutes with DynamicLink, which otherwise would have taken weeks or months to go and configure. So those are kind of the horizons of value of telco value. Telco savings once, OpEx savings later, and then sort of reimagining the business is really the third phase of where the value comes.
Yeah, and I think that last phase is what's really important, right? It's the ability for the network team to say yes instead of no. Right?
Yeah.
When organizations have to be agile, have to be able to respond to the business and the market conditions, the ability to bring things up, spin them up quickly, make changes, be agile, right? Basically like a cloud-like environment is what's going to separate out those businesses that are going to succeed and those who aren't.
There's that. The other thing we haven't mentioned it yet, but the DynamicLink also comes with an AI agent user interface.
Okay.
So a lot of these tools, if anyone's that's gone into a router and tried to configure the router, it's freaking hard. Like the level of technical expertise required for it is pretty difficult, and that's just one piece. That's just a router. When you include layer 2 and layer 3 and sort of route filter rules and firewall things, it becomes very complicated. what we've done with DynamicLink is we've put an AI agent, basically a CCIE agent in front of it that says, hey, I want to create a DIA connection with route filtering in Chicago. Can you help me set that up? Or to my use case earlier, hey, I have some data in GCP that I want to connect to an AI instance in AWS and connect to my branch office. Can you help me configure that? Sure. Here's what you need to do, and it'll walk you through step by step. So, it really turns the network guy, instead of like, oh, geez, what can I actually do that? It turns them into the hero of just, they have you phrase your intent. You're like, can I do this? And it will help you walk you through exactly what you need to do in order to go make that happen. So it's a pretty cool user interface to turn sort of a head scratcher network experience into really just telling us what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And we hear repeatedly stories of AI being introduced to drive productivity within these organizations. And it is interesting, when we did a survey, we had asked organizations, what's your primary reason for using AI or AI ops? And initially it was always, oh, we're able to find and fix problems faster. We're able to spin things up faster. When we asked organizations that have more mature environments, it usually turns to, we're able to get back time that we can use on mission critical initiatives for the business, right? Which ultimately is what's powering the business and driving their growth. So really important for that. And it's great to hear how you're leveraging AI to abstract that underlay complexity, but still keep operators in control, right? Because that's that human in the loop is hugely important for organizations.
Yeah, it's great in the user interface when it says anytime before you do something to the network, it says, this is what I'm getting ready to go do. Do you approve? And it's very clear on what you're getting ready to go do. Yeah, it's super powerful. And your comment on the productivity is a great one. In the knock, the troubleshooting is so freaking hard when someone calls in. I love the use case with the AI agent. Someone calls in and says, hey, I noticed my internet traffic in Dallas is running slow. Can you help me troubleshoot that? It'll say, sure, let me look into that. Hey, I noticed you got an influx of traffic from this IP address that's not normally sending traffic. Do you want me to apply a route filter? Yes, please. This is the route filter I'm getting ready to apply. Do you confirm that you want to apply it? Yes. So what would have taken hours of troubleshooting and screens and flows and is all done and is solved in 30 seconds. So it's really powerful.
Got it. And one of the other things that caught my eye recently is some of your ecosystem partners. And I know you've been creating reference architectures. There's I think recently it was the Equinix interconnect fit and so forth. So I'm wondering, how do you place that dynamic link adjacent to the clouds, the SaaS, and the colo fabrics?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, because we are a nationwide communications infrastructure provider, we are the partner of choice. We're actually the only long-haul provider who's been building new long-haul routes in the United States in the past 10 years. There have been people that have been overpulling routes, but we're really the only ones that have been doing it in the past 10 years. So we've been building the physical connectivity to these big data centers in West Texas that have huge pools of GPUs that are sitting out there. So we are connected to all the data centers, and think of that as like the attractive destinations. And so the combination of having physical connectivity to the attractive destinations, coupled with the DynamicLink product experience that makes it easy to find, connect, and manage all your connections to that, is huge. So that's a little bit of how we're involved with that. But what's interesting is that a lot of these GPU operators, networking is not their core expertise. So we've sort of released that AI reference architecture with Equinix, because Equinix was noticing that their customers were having the same problem of, how do I architect this thing? So we're positioned with Equinix as really thought leaders in how do you do networking to power AI, and then we're both building that into our products to make it not only connecting to the things you care about, but doing it with a form factor and removing all of the friction that makes it as easy as possible.
Got it. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about. If you're working with partners, there's always that question of how you're handling that traffic engineering across different region, different partners, or both. And I'm assuming that's all abstracted from the end users as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you can choose to make a really flat layer 2 network that can connect multiple clouds with multi-tenant data centers with headquarter locations, and we can even connect it. We're partnered with Starlink, where you can even connect to literally any destination, anywhere at any sort of lat long in the United States. where you can connect to that. But it created, like you said, but have that be a really flat layer two connection where any destination that you've made available on that can connect to each other, but it's not exposed out to the internet. So you're allowing an ecosystem of partners to all connect to each other without having to worry about what's the surface area that I might be getting attacked from on the internet, because none of the IP address space that you're using is publicly addressable. It's all in a private layer two network that creates a lot more security and a lot more control.
Got it. And I assume the operation model is somewhat integrated as well, if for troubleshooting across multiple partners as well.
Yeah, so it's as deep observability. Like I mentioned, if I mentioned in the use case earlier about troubleshooting about a DIA circuit, but yeah, we have full network observability, and so we can see the observability because we're passing the packets. We can see not only the performance, for example, of what's traversing our network, but because we know the timestamp of when from the server that the traffic started with and where it ends, we can measure end-to-end latency, and we have deep observability, and we can actually set alarming that can be like, hey, we noticed that traffic between these destinations is higher than it used to be. So especially for some of these AI use cases that can be more latency sensitive, having a network not only that is flat and has guaranteed bandwidth, but has the observability to guarantee that sort of the latency and performance requirements that you have are being met. Adds a lot of value that makes you sleep well. That not only you set it up the right way, but is performing how you need.
Got it. Now, I know that the DynamicLink was just launched recently, but I'm guessing you may have had a few private preview, maybe early adopters that you were working with. I'm wondering if you could touch upon maybe some of those examples. What were the problems that the customers were coming to you? What kind of results did they see? Just a little bit more deeper on some of your existing customers.
Yeah, we did, in private preview, we did a couple dozen customers to make sure that we're building the right thing. And we thought our baby was pretty, and we wanted to make sure that other people thought our baby was pretty. But really the biggest use case that they were coming in was kind of where I started, was their IT environment had become so complex that trying to build their networking to connect that complex environment was becoming unmanageable. It had passed this sort of complexity threshold where there were too many point-to-point connections. Applying, firewall rules at every single branch office with a branch office appliance instead of being able to apply it in the core of the network, the complexity had become this compounding problem where it was just getting harder and harder to manage. So that was the biggest one. Was a complete, like I said, a complete rethink of how you deliver connectivity services. That was the biggest one. Was that complexity. And then the operations of it was the second big one. I need to have better visibility into what the core of my network is doing, not just probes at the edge, were the two big use cases that most of the customers were coming with.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, and you really need to eliminate that complexity, and the only way to do that is to shine a light on it, right? So having that observability to what's going on, and then being able to collect the data, being able to leverage AI to be able to sort through what's relevant, what's not, provide the context, and be able to provide those immediate answers to the operators is really what's needed in order to remain not only agile but also available.
Yeah. I mean, think about the complexity. We've talked a lot about that. The old paradigm of delivering good network kind of features, it's always been about passing the bits, and then you would put boxes at the end where you'd have like a firewall or a load balancer or whatever at the end. So in each place you're connecting to, you need to have a lot of intelligence in that box. We've taken all of the intelligence that used to be in those boxes at the end and pulled it into the core of the network and made it completely configurable from one place. So when we're handing off to the customers, it's a very sort of low intelligence, network interface device or NID at the end. So instead of having to have firewall rules that you have to propagate through thousands of end devices, you can just do it in the core of the network. Instead of having to have security policies applied a million different places, do it in the core of the network. So it's a reimagining of all the complexity where you had thousands of devices in multiple places, consolidate it, make it easier to manage, do it all in one place with a much easier user interface.
Got it. No, that sounds great. I mean, one of the other things I wanted to touch upon was that, I'm thinking about the day-to-day operations. We touched upon this a little bit earlier as well, where we were talking about some of the before and after, maybe, how hard it is to do things today and how quickly it's doing it. With some of those early adopters, can you provide maybe a quick before and after with Dynamic?
Yeah.
So they said, hey, here's our problems. And then after they deployed it, going back in and saying, so what were the benefits that you achieved? What was the day-to-day operations
Yeah.
life like for you?
So one great example is connecting to cloud. So we at Zayo we had a product called CloudLink, where you would it was the standard telco ordering process, where you would say, hey, I want this connection from a port that I have in Oregon to a AWS in Silicon Valley, and the ordering process would take our sales and SEs and customers about 3 hours to fill out all the forms to get all of that down. DynamicLink can do that in about 30 seconds. So it's not just and the error prone, the amount of like back and forth that would take of here's my order form, oh I got this detail wrong, I got this right. So it's just that the back and forth, the complexity, the frustration is dramatically cut down. And then of course and that translates into hours spent and employee satisfaction. I think that's one of the things that people don't realize is that these complex processes and systems, it beats down teams. Like it creates attrition. It makes your job just not fulfilling. Again, it hadn't been in the market long enough, but I'm looking forward to sort of the first customer advisory board we have where we can start to get some of those softer inputs. When we do the demos, people are like, "Oh God, I can't wait for this," but it's gonna take a little while.
All right. No, I think that sounds great. And along those same lines, for organizations that are watching this and saying, hey, this sounds really cool, how do I get started? What's your guidance for these organizations, related to,
Yeah.
POCs, pilots, et cetera?
Yeah. Go to Zayo.com. There's a banner there right now for DynamicLink. You can navigate to DynamicLink. You can go and request a demo. Request a demo. We'll have somebody call you, get you set up with it. We have pre-provisioned capacity in 150 data centers. So if you go and say, hey, I want to get connectivity, typically we can get you set up in less than 10 days with your original port. And then once your ports are up, you can go in and set up your services and tear them down and do whatever you want in real time. So it's just go there and get set up and kick some tires.
All right, that sounds great. One of the things before we let you go, though, I want to ask about, we've talked a lot about AI and the importance of AI. Obviously, you're launching your network as a service with DynamicLink and so forth. What can you share about what the future will hold for these services?
Yeah, so I think there's I don't know is the best answer. Like my favorite parts about launching a new product is all the ways that it will be used that you didn't even think about. Um, and so I think there's what we do have strong conviction on. You'll see it in our AI reference architecture. We think the underlying design patterns for AI are going to look a lot like cloud. So you're going to be connecting to sort of a distributed hybrid multi-cloud environment, but it's going to be cloud on steroids. So it's going to be more bandwidth because the data sets that you're passing are bigger. It's going to be more security because the value of that data that you're passing is that much higher, and it's going to need to be more performant because if you have like a customer care agent that needs to be interfacing, it needs to be extremely performant. So if you think about the overarching sort of network designs are roughly the same, but they are on steroids, and it requires a rethink of how you do it because your old solutions don't have the bandwidth, don't have the security, don't have the performance, and don't have the control that you're going to need sort of in the AI world.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what comes next for you. And Bill, I really have to thank you. These great insights that you were able to share with everyone today. We covered why enterprises should look at Zayo, how DynamicLink changes the consumption model, where your ecosystem interconnect fits, how organizations can leverage Zayo and clearly be successful using it, and also a little hint at maybe what's coming next. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Bob. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for everyone who's watching, for more information on Zayo and its offerings, please visit the Zayo website, which is simply zayo.com. I'm Bob Laliberte with theCUBE Research. Thanks for watching.